welcome to You Up for More. I'm Jordana.
And I'm Jared. And it is so good to be here with you, Jordana. We're going to do this for YouTube, a little just extra, where we're talking about Love is Blind. People wanted our opinions.
Love is Blind. I was hesitant to watch the season, and then once I got in, I was like addicted.
You know, the show is great, just, top line. I think the first 3 episodes are horrible.
Yeah. You got to get through them.
You have to get through them, but you need them to have an opinion and context for the rest of the season.
They're very boring.
They're very boring, and also, I just hate everyone. I don't know about you, but it's like, and honestly, I hate them because they're me. They're you on a dating app. They're you. Right. They're aspirational you. When they're in the pods, they talk for themselves or about themselves and the life they want.
Right.
In a way that I'm like, this isn't real. But I guess that's first dates.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's like much more boring to watch everyone's first dates than it is to watch their fight.
Right.
2 months in.
Right. And that's why this show, like, I always say it's like, this is the show that's the natural continuation of The Bachelor. Right. Like The Bachelor is all first dates and get to know you and we love each other. And then they go home and here's your phone and here's who you really are.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. You get to see like the post choice, almost like Hangover.
Right. Yeah. Like the after coming.
Right. And you get to see that all happen within like, for me, if you're binging it one day, it's like we're madly in love to what have I done?
Well, that I think not just when you're binging, they do it too. Like the minute Jimmy and Chelsea get to the Dominican Republic, you're like, okay, this got real very quickly.
Well, what was your take on the whole Megan Fox part of it?
Well,
it was a big internet thing.
Well, the Megan Fox thing, and it's a big internet thing because it's like it gets into women and looks, which then when men weigh in, they sound horrific. Yeah. So, and there's a really easy way to take a moral high ground, which always wins on the internet. If you're more morally correct, you will win in the comments section. What? You think this woman is ugly? And it's like, no one is saying that.
Right.
I think that everyone believes or says that they are one celebrity better looking than they actually are.
Yes.
Like if someone was like, Jared, what do you look like? I'd be like, Matt LeBlanc. Like I would have
well, there's
an opinion of myself. And it's what you want people to say you look like versus who you actually look like. The compliments, the lookalikes that you go, thank you. And the lookalikes you go, I can never leave the house again. And I think but the problem is, and I think, when you say you're Megan Fox on a show.
Yes. Well, the whole thing, the way she said it, it's more, again, it's not, everyone who says they look like a celebrity always is a worse version, looks like a worse version of them. That's just everyone. That's why they're celebrities and we're not. That's why we are who we are.
We're the disgusting.
Yes. Like that's just kind of how life works. So you always have to take a grain of salt. And like, that's fine. She doesn't look exactly like Megan Fox. That's totally fine. The way she said it and that she gets called it all the time and that like, just the way that she said it, pretending not to even remember her name. Like, it's like, I look like, who is it? MGK's wife. It's like, if you know him well enough to call him MGK.
Right.
Is it?
Yeah.
If you know him well enough to call him that, then you know that, like, Megan Fox's name.
Who am I thinking of?
Right.
Megan Fox.
Oh, yeah. Right. Like, sometimes I get her. Like, the way she said it, the oversell of it, the like, no, like it was just that part was like crazy. And on a show where the premise is that you've never seen anyone, this is all they have to go on. You cannot oversell by that much.
No, you have to undersell, over deliver.
Yes.
That is the key to sales. You have to make someone excited to have seen you, not, I guess I could see it. You can't, there can be no question. You can't get the reveal and go, I see what you're talking about. Their voice can't go higher.
And to make this relatable to people, it's like a dating app. It's like, that's why I say don't put a picture on at your friend's wedding where you got your hair and makeup done and it's the most beautiful day of your entire life.
Right. And
put a picture up where you look like you usually do, or even one where you look a little worse.
Well, this is the thing about the show is you can tell Chelsea doesn't have very high confidence in herself.
I mean, that's immediately clear upon, it seems like in the pods she might, and then as soon as they're done, that's immediately gone.
To me, that's the experiment.
Right.
The experiment is, here's who you're looking at. It's like, no. You're going to have to make eye contact with someone, and then you get to be the real person you are. And I think every fight Jimmy and Chelsea have is built on she knew she sold him on a story that's not real, that she looks like Megan Fox, and now she can't believe in herself. It's like going on a date where you know the pictures are old.
Right.
And you know that you don't really look like
those pictures.
You feel
worse than if you depicted yourself in reality.
Right, because now it's in your head. She is now, and especially, again, you would only do that if you don't have confidence. So now she has fed into her biggest thing, which is the insecurity. And now that just is in the roots of their relationship, because they go and see each other. Jimmy goes, no, I'm just like taking you in. And she's like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And it's like, well, you're not sure. You know that you told him something different than actually is the reality.
Right. And the weird thing is that he does at least seemingly appear to be sure to an extent. Like if she didn't start all those fights by constantly asking about like how into her he is.
Right.
I feel like he would be pretty into her.
And I do think Jimmy is guilty of saying too much. Like I think he says things that you're like, dude, don't say this to her. But she's also has a lot of
like
insecurities.
What kind of things?
Just like him being like, yeah, I went and looked her up. She's like a Kardashian. And it's like,
why would you say that to her?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of Jimmy. You can kind of feel he's like pushing her away.
Or the thing with AD where he's like, why would you tell the girl you proposed to 3 days ago that another girl on the beach, what did he call her? Stacked. Is stacked. It's like, we already know that.
Right. But you can also tell, like, as the show goes on and we learn that he has a lot of female friends, like maybe he's used to that flirty conversation with the opposite sex where you can talk about women in front of women and say how hot someone is while also being with your girlfriend. Like, but that comes from a confident relationship. That comes from two people who are like excited about one another. And Jimmy never really gives Chelsea that excitement, and she keeps trying to pull that excitement out of him, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not going to work out.
She's kind of self-sabotaging.
Absolutely, because she's looking, and then she has a vision of exactly how she wants him to act, and when he doesn't do it exactly, he has now deceived her and is cheating on her and is lying to her and doesn't like her enough. And it's like, that's never going to be how people work in a relationship.
And that just goes to show, like, it's not, being in a relationship isn't necessarily second nature for most people.
No.
Like, you have to learn how, when she, and again, if she had just communicated with vulnerability in this whole thing, saying, listen, I feel really insecure because the other person you were dating is really beautiful. I'm like a little worried that like you feel like you would have rather chosen her. I even maybe exaggerated the way I looked because I was feeling so insecure, but like I just feel really scared that you don't find me attractive.
It is.
You had a real conversation like that one time, it would probably be done.
And it's so interesting that like we're all our own worst enemies.
Right.
She's in the pods. She sees another woman who is societally beautiful, and by society standards, and her insecurities about her own looks. She's like, I have to beat the hotter woman. What can I do?
Right.
And it's like, that sucks that she felt that way, but that's her own thing. It's like, no person is going to fix your insecurities. It's like a lesson for life.
Yeah.
No relationship is going to fix your insecurities. No person that you get out and they go, I love you. And then you're like, I love you too.
Right,
and then you go, hopefully he doesn't see that other woman on Instagram. And it's like, you're screwed.
Because you've got to love yourself.
Right.
As they say.
What about the other relationships? Kenneth and Brittany. What do we think about Kenneth and Brittany?
Their breakup was like awful. He seemed like a monster in the breakup. But I mean, it was clear to me after he had the conversation with AD in the Dominican Republic. It seemed like that planted a seed of doubt in his mind. But he didn't really articulate that particular. He sort of tried to, I think, and then he kind of just like removed himself from the relationship mentally.
Right. And men do that a lot. Right. That whole thing of like, I'm just going to go into sleep mode. I'm going to make her try and figure out how to turn me on again.
Right.
And then when she gives up, I'll go, well, we tried. Because he kind of did that.
Yeah, it's a little gaslighting.
You're right, and he was a little gaslighting. But you are right. That conversation with AD, and then they go on the boat. It's a little bit awkward. She's like, what are your love languages? I like physical touch. And he's like, I touch you all the time. And he's like, and she's like, well, no, I don't really feel it. And then she's like trying to cuddle up to him. Then they get back and he's like on his phone. And you're like, dude, you're not all about this, obviously.
Right. But you should be more mature to just like say that in a way instead of just kind of like again, removing yourself, making her like drag something out of you and then kind of making her think it was her fault.
Right. And that she would get mad that he would wake her up at 2 a.m.
Right.
So, I thought they were going to work out. Did you think they would work out?
I had more hope for them, I think, than other conversations. I mean, it seems like the only real one that I'm actually think might work out is the Johnny and Amy one, although that has its own issues.
Johnny and Amy, the whole thing about birth control, to me,
that was the one thing that was like standing in the way of them being a sort of normal.
What did you think of that
couple.
whole thing?
I mean, the whole thing was like I mean, he gets a lot of shit for being like you need to go on. He basically seems like he's kind of like pressuring her to go on birth control,
right?
Kind of and he's saying like that it would not be okay if she accidentally got pregnant or something like that, and then she kind of suggests a vasectomy, which I don't really
feel like the solution.
That doesn't really make any much sense. I mean, I guess you can reverse it, but I don't feel like that would be if you wanted kids, that would be your go-to move.
It doesn't feel like the way to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's also tough times for Johnny to be like Mr. like pushing a woman onto birth control. Like this isn't like a good look for him. Right. It doesn't seem like he has every time he talks about birth control, I'm like, dude, say this a different way.
Yeah, I don't think he like has all the knowledge about birth control.
No, and he speaks pretty confidently, as do a lot of the men on this show. I think the one thing that's like very noticeable is like
very
men
strong opinions,
speaking very confidently about relationships with no background in ever talking about relationships.
Right.
Because the women are like, they are, Penn grads, they're Ivy League, they're like, we've been talking about relationships at brunch and what we're looking for and how I want our entire lives. And you can see these men don't really hold back from their opinions on life and love and what they're looking for. But you can tell they've never done it before. Like him with the birth control thing, you're like, dude, there's a better way to put this. He could be vulnerable in the way you were talking about before, where he could go, it just makes me so nervous to have a baby.
But not have money.
Right. Yeah. And we can figure that out. I don't know, the condoms, we got to figure out doing other things in bed to find intimacy, but please know that this is my insecurity and I feel bad about it. And that I feel very much in line with Johnny.
I don't.
Yeah, condoms never get said. That's the weirdest part.
Right.
Like,
isn't that a solution to this issue?
Right. I mean, I
guess there's always a chance, but there's a chance with birth control too.
Right. And I don't think he knows how good condoms are. Like, I feel like it feels like he's never been taught. Again, this is very male. So I'm giving him a lot of I'm giving him a lot of empathy because I'm like, I see myself in him where I'm like, okay, he knows condoms work. In his mind, condoms are like a 50-50 shot, it seems like. And it's like,
maybe he doesn't know how to use them. We should do a tutorial.
Right. It feels like if they went and sat at one health class.
Right. They'd be like, okay, we have a plan.
Right.
We'll figure it out.
So that to me is like a fixable issue that he's getting hammered for because it's just easy to hammer confident dude who's saying you should go on birth control.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he comes off not the best, I think.
He comes off stupid to me.
I do think they have the most potential, the more you see, especially you see them after. They seem to genuinely like each other.
Well, on the
here's the other part, is I think that she seems like fairly obviously more attractive to me. And she does say like, he's not my type. He wouldn't be my type, but she's into him. And I think that kind of uniquely works for women.
Yes.
And he's like, enamored with like her beauty and thinks she's great. But like, I think that this dynamic wouldn't work the other way around.
No, I don't think so either. He looks like the kid from The Incredibles. So so on the subject of potential, Jeremy and Laura, I just saw him working. Like, I just saw him as like, he's the jokester dad type.
It's always the Phil Dunphys in disguise.
Right. It's a great way to put him. He's got the house. He's got the business. He's got he keeps things organized. He's got the cabinets have the labels out in the fridge. And
there was rumors, right, that he's like was engaged the show, or is that true? Did that come out as true, Candace?
He's confirmed that he was not engaged and that they broke up before he applied for the show, but his ex's mom posted a picture with his ex-fiance as well as her son on Facebook saying somebody was engaged to somebody when they went on this show.
My God.
But that's not true.
And he's saying that they were broken up before. So there's a dispute between him and his ex.
Sounds like it might have been shortly before he went on then that they broke up. But I knew.
Smoke, there's fire.
I knew, and Laura knew. Laura knew that when she saw those gold cutlery, that was not a man's that was not a single man's cutlery. She was like, this is so weird. He keeps saying he's so neat, but I didn't expect him to be so neat. And then she walks in and she's looking at the gold cutlery. She's like, what man would buy like this beautiful gold cutlery? And now the fact that he was engaged right before, probably this woman probably picked it out.
Registry. That was where it's from.
Registry.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other thing with his fight with Laura, like about how he was hanging out with Sarah Ann, the other woman that he didn't pick, until 5 a.m. He was like, well, I left my location on. And he thought that absolved him of like the wrongdoing of hanging out with this other woman as well. So being engaged before, never bringing that up, but then also hanging out with Sarah Ann until 5 a.m.
Right. Well, also we've said that on here, like, oh, my location's on. That's the magician showing you his right hand while doing stuff with his left.
But I don't know if you've seen this part before, but he also when Sarah Ann originally DMs him, he says, and they're having this fight in front of her parents. That he's introducing them to her.
I'm a little more behind than.
So the parents
Jordana.
come over and they're talking about their connection. She's like, yeah, but there was this other girl, Sarah Ann, and she actually DM'd him. She's like telling the story to her parents. Like she actually DM'd him and said, like, if you're thinking about your choice, he's like, but like I did what I was supposed to, like I wanted to build trust with you. So what did I do? As soon as I saw it, I came up and I showed it to you.
Right. We heard this from Jax Taylor on this podcast, and we were like, I don't show her the DMs. Right. That means there's future DMs.
It's like, what are you trying to build trust for a future attack? Like you're trying to build up the storm.
See, I'm so surprised by I guess I'm the fool because Jeremy to me was like, this is an adult nerd. He's with this woman who's, I think Laura's gorgeous. Like she's cool, fun. She's friends with all the women. Like I was like, what is there left to do here?
Right.
And it shows like this guy.
Well, he has issues. I mean, did you see in you watched the Dominican Republic part where he like gets mad at her and then just like ices her out for an entire night.
That's that whole storyline.
Not a good communicator.
I didn't understand that she's like, go do a bean dip.
I didn't even really understand what he was pissed off about. It seemed like it was a stupid joke and he was like drunk and he overreacted and then just didn't speak to her instead of talking to her about it.
Right. And he was a little embarrassed that, and again, he's the jokester. He's the guy who's going to like say the thing that he shouldn't have said. And he tries to say in the Dominican, he's like, if you tell me to stop, I'll stop. I know the difference. And it's like, any person who says they know the difference means that they've crossed a line once in their life. And that kind of felt like that moment. But I don't know. I guess when you go to bed at night, it was weird that he was like, I slept on the couch, and then he brings it up later in the day. He's like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. It's like, why didn't you say you were sorry last night? Like,
because probably he was drunk.
Right.
But I mean, he sucks. And then their ending conversation is basically when she's like, you were out with Sarah Ann. I had your location tracked. Yeah. And she's like, where were you? And he's like, I stayed in the parking lot the entire time, just talking till 5 a.m. And she's like, you were in the, she's like, oh, is that what your location said? He goes, yeah, it should say like right around there. She's like, really? Because it says this part of town that Sarah Ann lives in. Right. And like, and he literally just sits there quiet, like a fucking idiot. He's just the annoying part is when men are just like so stupid. Do you know what I mean? It's like
can't apologize for that.
It's like insulting. It's like you're so stupid that you almost like thought I would be this stupid. Right. Like it's insulting that you thought I was this stupid.
Right. So Clay and AD, what do we think?
I mean, honestly, I get like the Clay thing. I like him generally, but the fact that he obviously just won't stop talking about how much he wants to cheat on her before he even meets her. It's like,
well,
pretty big red flag.
He does talk about his dad. Everything about his dad, suave guy. He's a suave guy. He's a suave guy. And then we find out that they got, there was cheating.
Love AD.
AD.
I think she's great. I'm a huge fan.
I like AD. I could never date AD because of her eating. She does not like to eat.
I mean, she's a professional dancer.
I know, but I'm
like part of her job.
I thought that scene where Clay is like drinking the soup from the bowl, then the Dominican, and he's like eating, and then he like clears the table, and she's just like having a grilled chicken piece. I was like,
I mean, do you blame her? This guy's telling her he's gonna scream at her to get in the gym if she gains an ounce.
I felt like that was Clay. I felt like that was another instance of like a guy not knowing what he was saying.
Well, the more he was speaking, the more you're like, this is on camera. Right. Just like, shh. Just like, shh.
She's gorgeous. I just, the eating, I was like, and I liked when he was like, yeah, work out, whatever. But then she's like, what if I gain? It was almost like she set a trap for him to sound stupid.
I mean, he kept saying, I am very likely to cheat. I'm very likely to cheat. I'm very likely to cheat. And then, what if I gain weight? I'll make sure that doesn't happen. Like, this is all kind of like pointing to a future in which she's going to have to feel really insecure about herself.
Well, yeah, I
but I like her a lot.
What do we think of Clay not coming home at night? How would you feel if
my new fiance, I've known him 8 days, I'd be like, I mean, it's weird that we live together.
Right.
But no, I mean, I get it. If someone doesn't come home at night, you need to have extremely good communication.
Right.
As to like why and what's going on, I think, especially in an early days of someone's relationship. And I just don't think that he doesn't seem that mature.
Right.
Shocking.
You don't have to like keep in contact forever. But in the beginning, like, when do you usually get home? When will you be home?
You can't just not show up.
Right. When you live with someone, like, there's a negotiation of like, what are we doing tonight? How are we doing dinner? It does seem weird to just like,
you cannot not come home when you live with someone.
Right.
It's not like a roommate.
Right.
This is like, that's crazy. Especially someone who tells you all the time how much they think they're going to cheat on you. That's like one of the two things they talk about is like how much they want to cheat. And I don't know, what else does he talk about?
Right. No, I'll be home at 2 a.m. Also, good thing I'm not cheating tonight. Like, how do you even get beyond that?
That would be a tough life to live. But I mean, it's a great season. I'm excited to watch the rest.
It's been fun. I mean, it's like definitely like somewhat of a disaster. Like, it does feel like
brings me
this
back.
experiment, is really hard to pull off.
Totally. I mean, it brings me back to the days of Jessica 34, Mark 24.
Right.
Thought we had seen it all, and we haven't.
No, we haven't. But
I think the only people that'll get married are Johnny and Amy. What do you think?
You think Johnny and Amy?
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't think that any of them get married, if I'm to be honest. I just, at this point, it's like Johnny and Amy, Johnny just seems too immature to even handle a conversation about contraceptives.
Well, maybe they're the only ones I think that should still date.
Right.
After this.
Well, that was You Up for More.
And we'll be back next time. Bye.
Boom.
The You Up podcast is produced by Sean Kilby, Maddie Paul, and Jorge Morales-Pico. Editing by Jorge Morales-Pico. Social media by Maddie Paul. Be sure to follow at you.up.podcast on Instagram and send us your emails to uup@betches.com.